All right, guys. So a recap from week 12 of the NFL. It was a good week all around. I went 3-1 on my picks. So the one game that I had mentioned, I think it was Friday when I released the video of the games I liked for the week, was Minnesota. I took out. Um, didn't end up, wanting to play them simply because Thielen was not going to play. He was on the COVID reserve list, and that spread was still at 3.5 for the Vikings. So I felt like the Vikings were losing their top receiver in terms of like red zone offense. So and then laying three in the hook of Kirk Cousins, I don't really like laying points when Cousins is a favorite. So got off that game, which was good because the Vikings ended up coming back and winning, but they didn't cover. So that's kind of a good thing, I think, when when I'm getting off of teams that I like throughout the week and I don't end up betting them. I feel like that's a pretty good sign that I'm seeing things relatively clearly, because it's hard to get off a team when you've been wanting to bet them all week. So either that or I'm on the wrong team the whole week, and then common sense kind of comes in and then I get off that team. But regardless, I didn't end up betting them, so kind of avoided that one. The other four games I had liked, I bet, and I went 3-1 with them. So the ones I got right, I took the Saints. So that one was kind of weird. That line, I got them at 6.5, and then of course it went up to like 16, 17 points because the Broncos didn't have a quarterback. So crazy year, because you don't know what's going to happen with all these COVID guys not being able to play. So if you took the Broncos, it really would have sucked because you would have had them at +6, +7, and then all of a sudden they had no quarterback. So it's pretty much an automatic loss at that point. But worked out, took New Orleans, so I got that one right. And then I got the 49ers right, +7 against the Rams. The Niners won outright, so I thought that game was going to be close. I still thought the Rams would win the game, but I thought it'd be closer than a lot of people thought. I think this is like the third time this year where I've taken a team as a 7-point dog or more, and they ended up winning on the money line. So, no sweat there. And I was really feeling good about that San Francisco pick. So I knew going into Sunday, I'm like, if I get these two early games right, I might go 4 for 4, because I felt great, of course, about New Orleans, great against for San Francisco in the afternoon games. Now I just had to worry about the 1 o'clock games. And Atlanta, I also got right, so I took them at, I think it was minus or +3.5, sorry, against Vegas. I said that was a little bit trappy for Vegas, and Atlanta just rolled over Vegas. I didn't expect a blowout, but we'll take that one. So I got that one right. And the only one I got wrong for the week was the Chargers, +6 against Buffalo. That line closed at, I think, the Bills -4. And man, if that game was the one game I really watched, because the other games weren't close. And man, I was just I couldn't believe the Chargers couldn't cover. I mean, this was a typical Charger game. I haven't bet on or against the Chargers all year, but just looking at them, like I said, going into the week, they were 3-7 and a point differential that was very like almost zero. And the Bills, on the other hand, were 7-3 with the same thing. They were like +7 or +13, something like that. And so I expected a close game. And, the Chargers in that game, they outgained Buffalo in total offense. They only gave up, I think, 330 yards of offense. And that's pretty much the Chargers' season average. And they give up a lot of points typically, but they don't give up a whole lot of yards. And that kind of held true in this game. And the Chargers, I thought, played pretty good. Joey Bosa played like a beast. He had like 3 sacks. They didn't have Melvin Ingram, but Chargers defense, I thought, did a good job. They pressured Josh Allen. They couldn't stop the run, but they did pretty well against the pass. They forced 3 turnovers. They forced 2 turnovers in the fourth quarter. They gave the Chargers offense every opportunity to cover and even give a chance to win the game. And it really just came down to horrible play calling, and I can see why the Chargers now, although they look good on paper, although their stats are pretty good too, it's not resulting in wins. And that's because Anthony Lynn is just a total shit coach. I mean, there's no other way to put it. he should not be calling plays. He should not be the head coach. Um, I mean, he's one of the three worst coaches. I think him, Adam Gase, and Doug Peterson. I watched the Eagles play on Monday night, and he's freaking terrible as well. And I haven't really, I think I overlooked that a little bit because I usually look at more quarterbacks. I don't like betting against really bad quarterbacks, but I hadn't really taken coaches into consideration too much, and you shouldn't really have to in a lot of cases, but when there's a terrible coach like that, I think you do. And there was just a few times in that game where he was totally confused. He was bringing the kicking unit onto the field and then pulling them off, and then or vice versa, and then taking a timeout because he didn't know what to do. It happened at the end of the first half. They looked like they were going to go for it on 4th and short, and then he wasted all this time. Then he ended up taking a timeout, and then he ended up punting it. Like, it just was a really stupid call. So much so that even the commentators are who are usually, fairly objective, are like, this is why the Chargers have 3 wins this year. Like, they lose a lot of close games, a lot of games by 1 score or less, because they can't come up with big plays when they need to, and they just make too many errors. And I think a lot of it comes from their coaches. And then the second half was the same thing. It was like 10 and a half minutes left in the game. He's confused again. He brings his kicking unit on and then takes them off, ended up burning a timeout again. And then the end of the game, after all that, they still have a chance to do a backdoor cover. They do 2 Hail Marys. That Buffalo's given up a bunch of Hail Marys this year. They lost against the Cardinals with Hopkins catching one over them. They gave up 2 against the Chargers. 1 was brought back with an offensive pass interference. They do it again on 4th and 27. They catch it at the 2-yard line. Of course, they have no timeouts now because Anthony Lynn's burnt them all. They have 45 seconds. They run up there. I'm like, hey, just spike the ball. Stop the clock. They run a play, and they run a running play. And I'm like, why are you doing a running play here? You have no timeouts. And they got stuffed, and then too much time got wasted. And then they ended up running a couple more plays. They couldn't get in. The last play of the game was 3 seconds, QB sneak, and just went nowhere. He lost yards, and I'm like, it was just so painful to watch the play calling from Anthony Lynn and just his head coaching decisions. He's totally lost, and I don't get it. I think people say, well, it's easy to be at home on your couch making these decisions and making these calls, but I'm like, these guys are making millions of dollars. That's why I don't feel bad or have come up with excuses for these guys, because it's like I just imagine going to your job every day and being totally shit at what you do, and you're just making millions. I don't get it. And you can see these coaches, at some point you can see it, they're gonna be fired at some point, and you see it coming, but it just drags on, and then they inevitably are fired. It happened with Freddie Kitchens with the Browns last year. Well, this guy's done. I think Anthony Lynn's gone after this year, to be honest with you. Doug Peterson for the Eagles, I think he's done. He's total trash. I think the whole Eagles Super Bowl from a few years ago was, I think, a total anomaly. Adam Gase, I don't know, maybe he has the least talent around him, so maybe he gets a little bit of leeway. But there's no reason for the Chargers to be as bad as they are. There's no reason for the Eagles. I know the Eagles have theirs is management, and they haven't drafted well and all this crap, but there's no reason for these teams to be that bad and making such poor decisions when they have talent on the field. So that was the one we lost, and it's man, it sucks when you have an incompetent coach just screwing up the games, but it is what it is. We went 3-1. So that brings my season total to 34-17 on the season. This year has been tough, and I haven't really talked much about it, but I think the COVID thing makes things so much harder when players are in and out, and they're questionable to play, they're not practicing, but then they're playing, and it makes and then the scheduling. We saw the Steelers play today on a Wednesday. That game was rescheduled 3 times, in which I think favored Baltimore in the end. And it just everything with it's so much uncertainty around if players are going to play that you have to almost make these bets last second. I mean, like I said, if you took the Broncos, before Sunday, and then all of a sudden they have no quarterback, and it's it's so unpredictable. It's already a hard sport to bet, and now you're throwing this whole pandemic into the mix, and it makes it even harder. So yeah, it's just right now it's really hard to make these bets, but you try to make them, like I said, later in the week when you get more information and kind of see who's going to play and who's not going to play, and and yeah, I mean, you got to take it just kind of one day at a time. So this week I looked at the lines pretty quickly. It looks like a pretty tough week, so I'm gonna make my picks later in the week. Probably post a video on Saturday, maybe Friday night at the earliest, but probably Saturday. And I'll just have to look at these games more closely, looking at them quickly, like teams that I kind of like this week. When at a first glance are Washington, Cleveland, Indianapolis. So those are ones that I kind of like, but I want to wait till later in the week and kind of look into those games a bit more closely. But yeah, that was my week. It was a good week overall. Just kind of a tough, game there, not to backdoor, but it happens. It's part of it. So look forward to the picks later in the week for week 13. Like the video, guys. Turn on your post notifications as well, so you know when I put a video up. And if you have people that like the NFL or like betting on football, let them know and tell them to subscribe to the channel as well, just so we can get more subscribers. So let people that know about the video if you think they'd be interested. Keep liking it and commenting as well. All right, guys, until next time.